I'll call the meeting to order and welcome everyone. We have no 3-minute delegations. Before I ask for confirmation of the agenda, I'd like to welcome our new Chief Administrative Officer, Jason White. We've been without a full-time, or I should say a permanent CAO for over a year now, which has stretched our staff resources considerably. And I'm very pleased to see Jason in this chair, and I hope to see him there for many meetings to come. So welcome, Jason. I'll ask for approval of the agenda. Wenda and Sherry, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have minutes. Oh, any conflicts of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? None declared. Minutes from our June 3rd, 2024 session. Can I get a motion to adopt those minutes? Doug and Wendy, any comments or questions from those minutes? Rob? Microphone, Rob.
Councillor Woodcock was kind enough to to put forward that it has myself down as the Reeve and Krista Lee, Councillor Woodcock down as Deputy Reeve. I do not believe that to be correct.
Unless there's been an election that I'm not aware of, I believe you're right.
How are you feeling, Doug? Or how are you feeling, John?
Unless you want to take the chair right now, Rob. So that will be amended. Thank you for pointing that out. I just glanced at that and didn't notice. That's great. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Delegations. We have a delegation from Don Fenwick and Charles Detler commenting on the facility rental policy, which we're still developing. Gentlemen, do you want to come to the table? And you know the routine with the mic, I think. Just press the silver button and you have up to 15 minutes. Sure. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
There we go. Mr. Reeve, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Enterprise and Community Hall Committee, I thank you for the opportunity to speak regarding the draft bylaw affecting Enterprise Hall. I am Don Fenwick, and beside me is Charles Detler. A steward is described as someone who manages and cares for another person's property. And that is exactly what Charles and I have done for many decades. Now for a bit of history. The Enterprise Hall Committee was formed about 1925. This committee exists today. Generations of families have served on the committee. In 1926, there was a need for an assembly point for the many events and enterprise in the surrounding area. With a population of nearly 1,000 at the time, it was decided that the hall would be built. The community supported the event with labor, materials, and funding. The Fenwick brothers employed 25 men at 3 local businesses in those days, one of which was a state-of-the-art sawmill. This sawmill contributed immensely to the project links, and links were forged with materials, craftsmen, and community support.
Hello, I'm Charles Detler. The completed hall had benches all the way around. This is a bit of a history lesson. The hall, of course, then didn't have the addition to the south part. So there was no seating upstairs, only benches all the way around the dance floor, basically. And there were chairs, but they were folded and stacked and whatever. So, and it was a simple operation to run the thing. They had a huge wood furnace in the basement. And the basement is where all the meals were served. And what happened in the end, through whatever, it was decided, since it was only about 6'6", the basement. So when any upgrades would be done, the big basement was forgotten about because of the height. You couldn't legally serve food or anything else when you have no headroom. Anyway, all food and drink were served downstairs. And None was allowed, of course, to go upstairs at all to the hardwood floor. That was the dance floor. This is an unwritten rule even today. The basement could handle 60 or 80 seated guests at one time. And so if you had a reception, there was always a meal. And the ladies would be working out of the kitchen, and they had a wood electric stove in the basement, and that kept the kitchen part warm. And then the huge furnace kept the rest of the thing warm anyway. So lots of times the band played on and they ate in shifts downstairs. Go ahead, Don.
So much history and so little time. Our hall, if it might be called that, is the largest in the township and is also the most original in decor. So many of our other municipal rental facilities have been repurposed in one way or another. Enterprise Community Hall is more of a heritage building, coming from the people, by the people, and has been preserved by generations of current and past residents. We need to protect it from any avoidable wear and tear that is so common in these other facilities. So many important events, especially with families, seem to gravitate to this large, clean, historic, and welcoming building.
In 1977, the Enterprise Hall Committee members, and that included my father, Bernard Dutler, undertook to make some changes. At this time, there wasn't running water in the hall, and there was sort of indoor-outdoor toilets that you used. And anyway, that was the deal in 77, was to get running water in the kitchen and also have running water in your bathrooms upstairs. So through volunteers, plumbers, carpenters, whatever, the new flush toilets were installed that year. I believe that the township may have paid for the holding tanks, and at this time, as the hall ran only on rental fees, wood was usually donated, labor and cash donations in some cases. The entire water system was designed by my father to be self-draining each time, and then the building would go completely cold until the next event. It basically was a closet he made with a light bulb in it, and that's where the water came in. And the water came in underground, so it was below frost line. Anyway, so, okay, Don.
In 1988, fundraising began at the Enterprise, by the Enterprise firefighters and the Community Hall Committee, which were half and half sometimes. This provided funding, manpower to promote the need to modernize this historical building. A book could be written on what it took to get there over a 3-year period, and that's no guff. I regret that Bernard did not see the completion. He was missed. In a nutshell, an incredible amount of people in the community came forward to make this happen. In 1991, the firefighters and community hall members contributed $27,000 in cash, plus tables and chairs, along with a significant guaranteed labor contribution, which in total amounted $40,000. And we had to do it in writing. This was enough to secure a match from an Ontario grant, I think it was Wintario, for $40,000, which gave us a total of $80,000. Camden East Township Council at the time contributed $25,000 on behalf of the taxpayers. At a council meeting, I was asked by Reeve Dwayne Williams, and I'll quote this: "So you're telling me, you're telling us that this project will not be a burden on the community?" And at that time, I answered, yes, it will not. In addition, for more washrooms, Charlie, go ahead. Wrong color.
The addition was for more washrooms, better kitchen facilities, and a small bar, new windows for the whole building, and an area designed specifically for the consumption of food and drink. Once again, protecting the dance floor was the existing unwritten rule back from 1926. This was a long summer for many of the workers. We spent, at least every other weekend on projects there. It came together. I remember Ray McLaughlin and Eddie Hart and and Dougie Emmons and everybody that knew something about building. And it was only like 4 or 5 weeks and the roof was starting to go on the place anyway, go ahead, Don.
And the fundraising continued through this time. The first official event was in November 1991, and I was proud to host the Frontenac and Lennox and Addington Mutual Aid Fire Association dinner and dance. I remember it well. The glue was still wet under some of the floor tiles, and I'm not kidding you. I must admit that since that time, I have opposed any reduced or waived rental fees with some special exceptions listed in the proposed bylaw. All fundraisers are a good cause. There are no bad causes. However, our hall is a good cause as well. We must support the old girl first. So she will continue to support us in the future. As one of the many stewards of the building, we worked in support of it, not wanting to be a burden on the community, and we never wanted to be a burden on the community. Unfortunately, rising insurance costs started to put our efforts in the red a while back. But thank you to the ratepayers for the help keeping our hall viable and for more generations to enjoy. We got in trouble with insurance, and I remember the last radio I had, it was $4,000 a year, and we just couldn't generate enough funds through the hall to stay on top of stuff like that. So in comes the township. Go ahead.
Must resist the wants of some when the needs are not the case. Gradual deterioration of our facilities are evident in our historical significant, well-maintained and cared for hall. We need not fall prey to no rules means anybody rules. There was always unwritten rules, but now we need to make them official. We have a municipal need for a list of one public structure of this type will remain as good as it always was. And for years, it was always spoken that it was the best dance floor in the whole area.
Still is. Sorry, hogging your mic.
Okay. Go ahead.
On April 23rd, the Firemen's Association at the Enterprise Community Hall Committee gathered for a meeting regarding the new proposed bylaw. That will regulate the use of the community hall. Even with his busy schedule, we were pleased that CBO Jake Butler was able to attend as well. We want to thank him for this. I know he was really busy at the time. It was a very productive meeting, and having him there present there was great. During that meeting, many details were discussed regarding this bylaw to avoid future confusion of the hall's operation and use. When the draft bylaw was released later, the members present at that meeting had the opportunity to review it. And it reads very well, but the interests of all the users of the facility, certain elements could be adjusted for clarity. Tables and chairs should not be permitted on the wooden floors and instead be restricted to the tile floor area, other than those tables and chairs already in place on the Prince Street side of the hall. In addition, all tables and chairs are to remain in their current configuration to prevent costly premature wear and damage to the floors, walls, and tables and the furniture itself. An occasional exemption to this might be granted, but only when clearly justified and specifically requested by a non-regular basis, on a non-regular basis, i.e. the elections, we have to switch things around, and weddings, we've had some nice ones, there's one coming up. Special occasions and celebrations of life, all those things fall in line. Lighting fixtures and artwork on the walls are not to be tampered with or removed. This will help prevent the facility from premature wear and damage. Therefore, insulating the ratepayer from premature costs of repairs and replacement of items.
No signs, balloons, or other decorations shall be hung on the walls by any means other than push pins or common thumbtacks. This should be considered acceptable for all parties and users.
We just went through a while back, and they just put big tape on the walls. Of course, when it comes off, so does the paint. And why? A custom form will be prepared by the Enterprise Firemen's Association for township approval. It will contain important information that has been gathered from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. And I should have started off with, for rentals where alcohol is served. A custom form will be prepared by Enterprise Firefighters Association for township approval. It would contain important information that has been gathered from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission from Ontario. After it is approved, this form, named Enterprise Community Hall 1926-1991, must be completed at the time of rental by the rentor. These forms would be obtained by visiting the municipal office in person or by contacting the office. These forms will be designated as we're going to make them in a triplicate fashion, so the copy can be provided to the owner, one to the Firefighters Association, or to the renter, Firefighters Association, and the last to be retained by the township. There's a copy of this on the back page, and it's went through numerous revisions. And all it does is basically state some very basic rules involving alcohol from outside, gambling, a whole name, all the things that you're not allowed to do if you're serving alcohol in a public place. And we need to have that to make people understand what they can and can't do, because they're not going to go to the, section 34-2-14 and look it up. They're just not going to. If we do this, it'll allow a more seamless rental experience for all users and service providers, and that's us. It would also be very beneficial to all users of this facility if bylaw reflected in better detail what cooking activities can or cannot take place inside the hall. Based on this logic, this statement should be added to the bylaw under the facility use section. Food items that may release grease-laden vapors when either cooked or reheated shall not be prepared in that manner in the Enterprise Community Hall. After this statement is added to the facility use section by describing any pertinent fire code regulations that apply to the hall should be described exactly as written to eliminate any confusion for the renters. And I didn't do that very well, but I think if you read it for yourselves, you'll get the drift. Simply stating, in accordance with the Ontario Fire Code, it is not sufficient is it not sufficient in this intense instance? In particular, we need to state what's in the fire code. More information is always better than less. Sorry about that, Bumbles.
Proposed,
Yeah, go ahead, Kit.
proposed amendments to the Enterprise Community Hall draft bylaw. Some members of the community are in attendance tonight, and I thank them for their support and for the amendments we're proposing. If those people could quietly raise a hand to indicate that they're from Enterprise, please do so now. Please consider these amendments so we can enjoy a complete, comprehensive, and effective bylaw which will serve the community for many years, we hope. Thank you.
Thanks very much. You didn't go too far over time. It was pretty close to 15 minutes. Any questions from council or comments at this juncture? None shown. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Wenda. Oh, was Doug first? Go ahead, Doug.
Well, a lot of work has been put into this. I recognize that, and I recognize the passion of which it's put forward with. I've read it through, and Jake told us the last time that he talked to us that he was looking for suggestions. So I'd like to move that suggestions that are here from pages 6 through 10 be forwarded to Jake for inclusion in a site-specific portion of the bylaw for the Enterprise Hall.
Seconder for that? Sherry, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Wenda, did you have something? Was that all, Doug?
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead, Wenda. Microphone, Wenda.
I'd also like to add that I think the form is wonderful. And I wonder if, this might be included in what Doug just moved. Did that include the form? If you would consider allowing us to change the title of the form so that it could be used for all of our facilities instead of just the one community hall, because it's a great form and I think it would pertain to any hall that's offering or has the ability to offer a cash bar.
Just one more fix at 20. You can tell me, or someone can tell me what you'd like to have on the top.
Okay.
It used to say Anthony's Township on it, or Stone Mills Township, sorry. But then I changed it to Firefighter Association because I didn't have to put the other out there.
Right.
This time, if someone tells me what you need to do, what you want, we can do that.
Well, what does council think? That's just my suggestion that it
Well,
should
that can be submitted to Jake for consideration in the
Okay.
policy, so.
Sure.
So that'll go forward.
All right.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
In that case, can I get a motion to receive the delegation as presented? Krista Lee and Rob, all in favor? That's carried. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks for pointing out the room.
Oh, it wasn't too hard. Okay, moving on. Bylaws and resolutions. 6.1 is a zoning bylaw amendment, which we heard in our previous public meeting. The recommendation is that the planning report be received and further, the council adopt bylaw 2024 to be numbered later, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2014-744, Township of Stone Mill zoning bylaw. Zone change from rural use zone to hamlet residential zone, and that the Reeve and clerk be authorized to sign and seal. Can I get a mover and seconder for that, please? Doug and Wendy, any discussion? I guess we kind of went over that in the public meeting. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The second one, 6.2, is the storing zoning bylaw amendment application D04-2023. Recommended the council receive the planning report and adopt bylaw to be numbered, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-744. The Township of Stone Mill zoning bylaw, zone changes from waste management M4 zone to rural RU zone and site-specific open space OS-1 zone, and that the Reeve and clerk be authorized to sign and seal. Can I get a mover and seconder? Sherry and Krista Lee. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Staff reports. Chief Administrative Officer White, establishing the L&A OPP Detachment Board. The recommendation is that the report entitled Establishing the L&A OPP Detachment Board be received, and that council appoint the Reeve as a member of council on the detachment board, and further that council direct staff to advertise for the joint community member with the Addington Highlands, that it's joint with the Addington Highlands, and that the council appointees to the detachment board review applications and make a recommendation to their respective councils for appointment. Now, there's some discussion in order here, and Brandy, I'm not sure how we should do this from a procedural standpoint, because Councillor Milligan has expressed interest in serving on this board. I am overwhelmed with committee and board responsibilities, not to mention individual constituent ones. I'm also interested in succession planning for council. I'm not going to be Reeve another time. And so I'm interested in seeing councillors take on more responsibilities. Krista Lee has taken on the Conservation Authority, which I served on forever. However, other councillors may be interested in this police board position. So at what point do we do what here in terms of motions and procedure?
Through you, Reeve Wise, if you want to open the floor up for nominations, or if the council members want to put forward their name, and then if there's multiple council members that have put forward their name, a council member can make a motion to nominate another council member, which would then require a seconder.
And if there are two, then we would have to have a ballot.
A vote.
A vote,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's just done in open session. That's not a written ballot. Okay, that's fine. So Councillor Milligan, did you want to declare your interest at this point?
Yes, please.
Is there anyone else interested in serving on this board? I'm not going to do the 3 times routine. Okay, so if then the motion as printed could be amended to read Councillor Milligan instead of Reeve Wise, would that be acceptable? Okay, then with that amendment to the recommended motion, could I have a mover and seconder, please? Wenda and Rob, any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you for taking that on, Sherry. Don, it's not a public meeting, so unless council wants to entertain a comment from the audience.
We just have a number of items here that are late for the meeting.
Oh, you don't have to stay. It's not required that you remain.
All of a sudden get up in the middle of a discussion.
It happens all the time. Yes, thanks very much. I know, yeah. I should say, no, unless you know the password, you can't leave. They're too polite. Okay, so Jason, I didn't even let you speak to that item of your first agenda item.
In all fairness, it was Mr. Sands that put this together. It's just timing. Has it under CAO, and I'm sitting in the chair today, but it was Mr. Sands that put the recommendation together.
Well, you dodged a bullet then. Not that it was a very high-powered bullet. Thanks. Okay, our next item is under our treasurer's heading, and this is our tax billing and collection policy. The recommendation is that we receive this and that a bylaw to adopt a tax billing and collection policy be enacted and passed, and the Reeve clerk be authorized to sign and seal. Anita, I guess you're addressing this, are you? Is there anything you wanted to comment on other than what's written in your report? That's fine. It's fairly clear and straightforward. Are there any questions from council? Could I ask what was the main revision that you were interested in presenting in this new policy?
Through you, Reeve Wise, it's just a combination of including the tax billing, which wasn't previously had, and some new e-billing options that we would be having looking forward in the future, plus along with a few administrative housekeeping items. And it would be nice to be passed prior to our tax billing, which we are doing tomorrow. And should be out by and due in July.
Right, so this is for the July mailing.
It's just looking at what is coming through as we're going and having a chance to look at the different policies that we're administering as we go along.
Right. Jason, did you have some comment regarding the county in regards to this particular policy, or was a separate concern? Yeah, okay. Any questions for Anita on this one? Did I get a mover and seconder, Brandy? Sorry. Could someone move this, please? Doug and Sherry seconds, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. Okay, section 8.3 is our township clerk. This is a procedural bylaw review update. The recommendation is that council receive the report entitled Procedural Bylaw Review, and that the video recordings of council meetings, council and committee meetings be removed from YouTube in accordance with Township Records Retention Bylaw after a period of 2 years, or that those recordings be removed from YouTube after the term of council, or that those recordings remain on YouTube indefinitely, and that staff be directed to develop a policy that speaks to keeping videos online and circumstances for their removal. Can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Krista Lee and Wenda. Brandy.
Nothing further to add to the report. I'll just note that there are 3 options available to council. So whatever option that council opts for, we'll just do a friendly amendment to the motion on the floor.
Any questions or comments on this one? Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I personally don't see the need to keep it forever. And, you know, to be quite honest with you, I think option 2 is quite adequate. It serves to handle the whole term of the council. And I would be supportive of option 2, but I'm willing to listen to what others have to say.
Anyone else? Yes, go ahead, Krista Lee.
I definitely think this is a major improvement of when we started. When I started here, I was told that they had to be 24 hours or the threat of legal repercussions were coming down on us. And that was clearly bad advice, we're told now. And so I knew when I was elected that that was something that needed to change. I still lean on the side of them remaining online in terms of a public record that is like very thorough. And if an issue comes up, that people can freely look back without putting an onus on the clerk to look through records and files and find things like that. It's more accessible for the public. It saves the taxpayer staff time and labor. And I also don't know if we need like additional red tape in which people can access public information. It's also my opinion that we did pass a unanimous vote for them to remain indefinitely with this legal opinion. And now that I'm nervous and my throat's closing. The legal opinion has been rendered that it is fine. I remain in favor of them staying online. What was the other thing I have? Yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of the legal opinion, and I did read this and I just have forgotten specifically, is the concern to make them accessible for hard of hearing people, and regardless of if it's for the term of council or indefinitely, do we still have to ensure that that's the case?
If it's in our procedural revise, if it's in our procedural bylaw to keep the videos up and available to the public, we do need to ensure that they are meeting the AODA requirements. So they are required to have closed captioning. YouTube doesn't provide the best closed captioning, so some of the information can also often be misinterpreted. The minutes are the official record of council meetings. So if someone with hearing impairment was watching one of the videos and the information was not accurate because of the closed captioning, they may not think to go to the township for the official record. So that can create some confusion for the records and the decisions of council. If we do get asked for proper closed captioning to be available, we would have to hire external resources to do that service for us.
And do we have any idea what the cost would be to do, say, 2 meetings a month and maybe a committee of adjustment meeting as well for that service?
I don't have that information at this time.
So that's something that, is that a concern to council, the potential cost issue here? Or do we just go with the YouTube caption and hope that they don't give us some erroneous captioning Yes, Rob, go ahead.
One of the things that, and as much as I'm looking at these options and and debating them in my head, the one issue I'm seeing with the videos disappearing at the end of term of council means that last 3-4 meetings would only be on for a matter of a few months, sometimes weeks, if that's what we do, right? The last meeting would happen and then the election and that meeting goes away. So the first one seems to be a little better when it comes to that, because at least you got 2 years no matter when they're put up. But yeah, I mean, let's just take a look at the costing. If the costing's not crazy on that closed captioning, then at least we'll be educated on it. But realistically, yeah, I think we need to have that number as to what we're going to pay for that going forward. I don't trust the amount of microphones that don't get turned on, the amount of this going on, that sort of thing. I worry about that captioning, whether it's actually capturing the essence of it, where we have official minutes of the meeting. The reason we put them on was for COVID. COVID no longer exists. So we need to find that balance, in my opinion. So if we could look into the costing, then we'd know.
Crystal.
I spoke to a counselor from a neighboring municipality, and she told me, it's her second term. She said they've never had a complaint about the captions. So she's had over 4 years. Their videos remain online. They don't come down, and they've never had a complaint of captioning. I think, honestly, it's a waste of time to look into. If we get a complaint, then let's address it. But we haven't had one yet. And I'm hearing from a neighboring municipality that it's never happened. So I'm in favor of moving forward. I also felt like the legal opinion itself was kind of delaying this change, but I'm happy to do it. And now we have clarity. I think I'm ready to move forward with the videos remaining online. If that issue arose, I think we can address it at the time. And further, if mics are not working, then it's not going to matter if a person's captioning it or not, right? So.
Anyone else? Sorry, Sherry, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, I don't think we're using closed captioning now, so we have no idea what the cost is going to be. So we're not compliant already.
I think what
right?
Crystal is suggesting is that we just go with YouTube's automatic closed captioning and not hire anyone. It's free.
Okay. But we
You'll
haven't had
see-
complaints because we're not using it.
You can turn it on, but it's just that we'd have to turn it on, I think, automatically on our videos, which I think you can do as a setting.
Go ahead, Rob.
Can we introduce each video with a disclaimer? Is that something that our legal people could draw up for us? Just saying that, declaring all of these things.
That closed captioning is automatic with YouTube and may not be accurate.
We don't
Brandy?
own it. We don't have any control over it. We don't subscribe to it. It's provided as a benefit or service or whatever, et cetera, et cetera. And that the official record of the meeting are the minutes and can be found on our website here.
Right.
Would that be at least helpful rather than just throwing it to the masses?
Yeah, Brandy?
Through you, Reeve-Wise. So as part of recommendation number 3, if council opts to keep the videos up indefinitely, it would be wise to put in a policy for closed captioning or for live streaming YouTube video meetings of council through YouTube, sorry. And in that you could include that they're not the official record of council minutes. You can include where to find those and that closed captioning is on, however, it may not be accurate. But the township can still be called on providing accurate closed captioning of the meeting, which you would still then have to provide because the YouTube video wouldn't be accurate, potentially.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Wenda.
Just wondering, what is the administrative nightmare attached to going on at the end of a 4-year term and removing all those videos?
Through you, Reeve-Wise, it would probably take a couple hours to do. I've never gone through and removed that many videos off of YouTube at once. I don't see it taking weeks on end to complete, so.
Jason, did you have a comment?
Just with long-term retention of the videos and storing them, on YouTube is a service that we don't have a contract with or any obligation for them to retain our videos. So on an administrative side, we would also have to ensure that we're retaining them locally and storing large amounts of videos on our servers here so that if the terms and conditions of YouTube ever changed, we would have backup copies, because right now we're taking advantage of a freely public service. This is not a commercial service we're using to host our videos. So it's an indefinite retention time on video will start to add up and cost us some overhead on the administrative side.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Crystal Lee.
The only thing, is there a way to have in our policy that they remain on YouTube indefinitely? And if those terms of service ever change, then that's that. Like, I don't feel the need for storing locally. I feel like stored in the cloud, it's there, it's nothing on us. And if, I don't know if it needs to be in the bylaw that if that changes, then that's that. It's like we use a social media service. What if it no longer existed? Well, that's just how the internet works sometimes. So I would still be in favor of them just being on the cloud, not stored locally, but still feel very strongly about them remaining. Just there's such a richness to these discussions. It's not always the case. So sometimes we get through and it's like bam, 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 we've done our decisions for the night, it's all smooth sailing. But sometimes there really is a richness of discussion, and some issues span over years. And I just think it's just that information is valuable, and the idea of it being lost, I'm not in favor of. So
Doug, you haven't weighed in on this one since the start. You go ahead.
No, and
then
I
I'll
don't
get to
think
Rob.
we're going to get an answer to it quite this way. So I'm just going to make a motion that we go with option 2, and we'll see how the vote goes.
Okay, that's on the floor. Rob, before I get a seconder, did you have something that you wanted to comment on?
I was just going to quickly say that, yeah, I don't disagree with Councillor Woodcock. I see benefits to it in multiple ways, but also we aren't subscribing to that storage. So storing it in the cloud is when you pay for space there, and that's yours and you own it and you have a contract, and that generally doesn't change much. But as elaborating with our new CAO, when we're just using a free service, we are subject to that. And if we store it internally, then we always protect that from if that just disappears, or if we get something happens and it just goes away and we can't fulfill our own obligations by our own bylaw anymore. So I could see the benefit of both. I would be willing to second Doug's motion.
You have any further comment then? Yes, Wenda?
And Councillor Fenwick brought up a really good point, though, and that is at the end of the 4-year term, all of a sudden they're gone. So I'm wondering if Deputy Reeve Davison would consider at the end of the 4-year term plus 6 months or plus 2 months or whatever, because for one thing, new councillors coming on might enjoy the privilege of going back and looking at some of these, as Crystal Lee puts it, some of these hot topics and seeing the lively discussion that takes place. But the second they take over that term of office, those 4 years are gone. So there might be a learning opportunity.
It's possible to do, yes. To keep a retention of a further period at the end of the term.
Okay, I've got all kinds of people wanted to. The seconder has a comment first, Crystal Lee.
Actually, I appreciate you bringing that up. It was my own point. I've lost track of what I was doing there. I apologize. In regards to that, we did this previously with the previous procedural bylaw where we had, because we had different meetings and different times for meetings and so on, we could put in there at the end of council or a minimum of a certain period of time per video, which would be pretty straightforward because at the end of council, you just go back and delete the first 2 years and the last 2 years stay on for a period of time. It might be a little bit more administrative headache, but if it's a matter of an hour or two to be able to meet those requirements, that would be beneficial maybe.
I think Brandy wanted to weigh in on this particularly. Go ahead, Brandy.
Through you, Reeve-wise, I just have a procedural matter. So we do have a motion on the floor by Councillor Woodcock to start discussion on the item. So if we could dispose of that or amend, or if you want to
Just final note is that we did already vote on this, and we all voted unanimously to leave them on indefinitely. We voted for that already last meeting with the note that we needed a legal opinion. That was the motion, I thought. So
I don't recall. Is that?
it was
is that
indefinite
the-
with the amendment for requesting a legal opinion first. So that's, I know not everyone was in favor then, and it seems they may not be now, but
Okay. Brandy, what's the situation there?
So there was a motion that was passed by council to keep videos up indefinitely with the advice or after seeking advice from legal counsel. So new information, or if council deems this new information, council can, by motion of council, change that.
Okay, so what's your requirement then? I mean, you've presented us here with three options. We're voting on the second one, but we've already agreed that they're going to stay up indefinitely. So which motion takes precedence here?
Well, council can change how long they're being kept up based on the information that that's been received through this report. But there is a motion on the floor right now from Councillor Woodcock to receive the report, and option 1, 2, or 3 has not been selected yet. So if she wants to finish with that motion, or you can withdraw the motion.
Well, I do feel strongly about this, but I also acknowledge and that option 2, and I also believe in Doug's wisdom, and that option 2 is a drastic improvement to what we've had. And I think that's positive, and I'm willing to settle for that. And not settle, it is an improvement, a drastic one. And so I'm happy to go with that.
Okay, thank you. And so Doug, you were accepting the extension of videos for some period so they could be viewed after a term of council is over. So have you got that, Randy, that amendment? And you're comfortable with that too, Rob? Any further discussion?
Can I just quickly
Yes,
get
go ahead.
clarification that the video recordings of council and committee meetings be removed from YouTube after the term of council? Was there any friendly amendments on top of that after Councillor Fenwick?
The amendment to extend those last meetings for 6 months.
The last 2 years of council?
Yep.
Extend those for 6 months?
Yep.
Is that the consensus of council?
Yes, I believe that's what we agreed on. So
Okay.
you've got that then?
Yep.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
You do good.
So section 10 is items for consideration. 10.1 is Lennox and Addington county request to support the development of a GIS strategic plan. Staff support their request to work with the county to develop a GIS strategic plan and recommend council approve. The recommended motion is that council receive the request from LNA County and that the request be supported. Any discussion on this item? I know this is something that's of great concern at the county level. Wenda, go ahead.
Just a point of clarification. We've already asked the county if they would explore the prime ag and class 1, 2, 3. Does that get combined in with this GIS study, or is that two completely separate items?
Well, I mean, GIS will be involved in that Lear or Hale study, yes, but this is more a case of a shared service being developed in the county. Jason, would you have any comment on this? I mean, it used to be kind of part of your bailiwick at the county.
Yeah, the county has had some staff turnover, so they're looking at reevaluating what they replace that staff with. And there is some, I think, inconsistency with the level of service that the county is providing between the different townships, whether or not the townships have their own GIS services or not. And so I think that they're looking to plan for the future as far as capacity at the county level for GIS and taking into account the needs of the specific townships that require less or additional support in that regard. So feedback from each of the member municipalities will be useful in making sure that they have the necessary resources and are resourced accordingly for any anticipated requests from the township for support from GIS.
Jason, anyone else? Doug, go ahead.
Just a question on this. I know we were in favor with at the county level of it, but I'm wondering in the township level, does this require more personnel?
I think actually it's just the opposite. My understanding anyway. Jason, I guess I'm going to have to start saying Jason Sands and Jason White here. Do you have some thoughts on this one?
Thank you, Reeve Wise. Through you, no, I agree with that comment. In fact, it's the opposite. We, as you council members are aware, that we lean heavily on our county colleagues and the support specifically for GIS. And this is a proposed recognition of that in my sense of that comment, in the fact that we maybe more so than some of our peer municipalities lean on them. And we recognize that difference maybe you need to recognize via agreement. To continue that service, to avoid the need to bring more in-house expertise here at the township level.
Thank you. Anyone else? So, did I get a motion? No, I'm not very consistent. Can I get a mover? Sherry? A seconder? Wendy? Any further discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And we have an item for information. This is in private lane addressing. James, you're going to address this one, are you? Okay, can I get a motion? The recommendation is that council receive this report for information purposes. Can I get a mover? Doug and Wendy. Thank you. Go ahead, James.
Thank you, Reeve Wise. So the report, it's pretty succinct as to what we're trying to do. So in 2018, we started a phase 1 of the private lane addressing. So what this did was there's a number of private lanes in our community that have been essentially unaddressed. And when I say that, all the addressing was off the main township road. So at the time, a bylaw was wrote to include anything that had more than 4 parcels on the road. So if it's a cottage lane and it only had 3, then we keep the A to Z sort of addressing on that. If it was more than 4 properties on that, then we would name that private lane and then we would assign it an address range just as we would in the other streets. So this project is just to take on the remaining private lanes in our area, as well as some shore-based addressing that we also need to clean up as well. So in the map there, I'd be glad to answer any questions about the names. I know there's one in particular, an island name that has come up with in staff discussions. So I'd be happy to discuss that. So I'll open it up for any questions or comments.
Any questions or comments from council on these proposed names? Wenda, go ahead.
So thank you very much, James, for clarifying. I sent James an email regarding the labeling of one of the islands, and that maybe we need to reconsider that one. And you explained that it had been, so it had a name, correct, from MPAC?
Yeah, through your rewise. So the islands in particular are the ones on Beaver Lake. So Tucker's Island, Cedar Island, and Indian Island. So what Councillor Lalonde is speaking to is Indian Island. These names were taken from the legal description that's in our MPAC data. So that's the only reference we have to a name for those pieces of land. There's nothing in the Ontario Naming Board. There's nothing in the official Ontario maps that would name those any different. We can definitely explore different names for those islands. We would just have to be cognizant of naming of islands and lakes need to go through the Ontario Naming Board and can take quite a bit of time.
So I liked the names of everything that you chose. They were really nice names. The only one island that I would like us to reconsider is Indian Island, based on the culture of today versus the culture of when that island was named, which is entirely different. I don't know about anybody here, but I used to play cowboys and Indians in the backyard with my brother, but I wouldn't suggest that my grandchildren do that today. So I would like to suggest we name it, or see if the process would allow us to name it Thompson Island, after our former Reeve, Deputy Reeve, years of council, Debbie Thompson.
Okay, anyone else? So that, James, you're saying, does that island show up as named on any sort of like provincial topographical maps or anything like that? Or is it just an unnamed island at this point?
No, the only place we were founded was in the legal description from the land registry that's being referenced by MPAC.
And is it privately owned?
Yeah, it is, yes.
Okay. And is there any building on it of any kind?
Yes, there's one cottage on there.
Okay, so it would have to have an address.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So what is council's wishes in this regard? Wenda, I'm assuming you're making this a motion? Yes. Okay, is there a seconder for that motion?
Sorry.
Yes, sorry. Go ahead, Brandy, if I,
Brief-wise, sorry. We do have a motion on the floor, so if we just want to do a friendly amendment, I have a moved by Councillor Milligan and seconded by Councillor McDonald to receive the report for information. So if there's any amendments that want to be made, friendly amendments, we can add it in there.
or we can just have a vote on that and receive it, and then we can have a follow-up
Subsequent,
motion.
yeah.
Why don't we do that? Let's vote on the receive, so all in favor. And Wenda, you want to make that motion now? Yes. Okay, so Wenda's motion is to redesignate that island, Thompson Island, after the late Debbie Thompson. Is there a seconder for that motion? Yes, Wendy has seconded that. All in favor? Oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead. Doug, go ahead.
Unfortunately, I can't support that motion. It's a privately owned island, and I'm sure that they would at least need to be consulted before we put somebody else's name on their property. More than likely, they would want their own name on it, to be quite honestly. I recognize the sentiment, but I think it would be an error, to be quite honest with you. I think we should find a different name.
Anything further? Yes, Crystal Lee, go ahead.
My only thought, I like that Councillor Lonis pointed out maybe the need for changing this. One of my thoughts, if we were to change the name in the spirit of reconciliation, might be to reach out to the Bay of Quinte Mohawks or a neighboring Indigenous group for their input on renaming an island that had what is now viewed to be derogatory language. Just thought
Depending-
of reconciliation, you know?
Yeah, depending on which Indigenous person you ask, because
Also the
some of my
American-
buddies at Tynaniga are fine with Indian and they use
Yeah.
it, so you just don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, exactly. And you may also hear that it's fine and then that's that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It might be nice to have an opinion
Yeah,
that's not us.
but the owner's opinion might be
But then that
something to
also-
consult as well. Rob, go ahead.
I think that the best route, and I do agree, again, Doug said it best, I do appreciate the sentiment as well, is just to, like you say, reach out to the owners and express our interest in doing this and why we would want to do this. They may be perfectly okay with it. They may be glad that we've approached the concept and say, hey, we're cool with that. But we should put them first. But I do think that we can include that with the message and see what happens. Isn't that straightforward?
Okay, so go ahead, Doug.
Just a little follow-up on it. The reason I'm concerned about this is way back in history, we started naming roads in the township that didn't have names. And I can tell you the uproar over putting Cutler Road on when it should be Shangri-La Road because they were the longest resident or whatever, was a big deal. So I would, when there's only one resident, I believe they should be consulted, to be quite honest with you.
Go ahead, Wenda.
So I'm happy to amend my motion.
So how do you want it to read then?
What he said.
So your motion would be then to approach the current owners of the island, express the concern with the designation of Indian Island, given modern sensibilities, ask them if they would be comfortable with the name change to Thompson, and if not, what they would propose, and that would come back to council. Is that acceptable to everyone? Who was the seconder for that? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
I
Yes.
will add one
Yes, go ahead,
caveat
James.
to everything. So all of these names need to be sort of cleared through our vetting process to ensure that they're not a duplicate in the area that would cause
course.
confusion. So
Yeah, subject to that consideration. All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, James.
thank you.
And that brings us to new business and statements from members. Anyone have anything they wish to bring up at this point? Yes, Crystal Lee, go ahead.
Just, sorry, thinking back to what we just did, I would still like, under that motion, if we could send a letter to the Mohawk Bay of Quinte and ask for just an opinion, because there may be, as you know, like the American Indian Movement, for example, it isn't always viewed that way, and they may say, leave the name, rather than change, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. Not to say that, yeah, let's,
Let's wait and see what happens.
yeah,
from
they may
James.
say, leave,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
okay.
we can look at that when we get some feedback. Anyone else? New business statements from members? I have something that's been concerning me, and I think I mentioned at a previous meeting. Thanks, Rob. I'm always bugging you guys. Turn your mic on. It's a number of dead ash trees that are becoming more and more evident in the township, particularly on our property along rights of way, not to mention the county. I think I brought it up at one point, and it was kind of a wait and see. Limbs are going to start dropping, and then trees are going to start falling. And I'm wondering from our Public Works Department if we could get a report or an idea of should we be proceeding with some proactive cutting? What are other municipalities doing? I mean, this is widespread. And I'm just wondering what council thinks about that. Yeah, yeah. Do you need a motion for that, Brandy? So can I make a motion or can I ask council to move?
If you want to make the motion, you have to remove yourself from the seat.
Can someone do this for me? I like sitting here. Yeah. Okay, Wenda, so that we get a report from Public Works on dealing with the dead ash problem along our rights of way in consultation with the county, would that be just what Wenda said there? Is there a seconder for that? Sherry, any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. If there's nothing further, we have no closed meeting. We need a confirming bylaw to confirm the proceeding of the Council of Stone Mills Township be enacted and passed, and that the Reeve and clerk be authorized to sign and seal. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Doug and Rob, all in favor? That's carried. Motion to adjourn, please. Wenda and Wendy, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. You survived.